Yeah, we are live, sir.
Thank you, Himmat. Hi, friends. So, good evening. Sorry for the delay today. So, since the system is updating, and that is where the 15 minutes delay. And thank you so much for your patience. And as discussed, today I would like to talk about predefined objects and user-defined objects and regular expressions and exception handling. And these are the concepts which I planned for today. And since my system is getting updated, and I may not able to work on the existing folder structure. I joined with another new system. So let's discuss about this new concept separately. Okay. So what is the use of predefined objects in JavaScript? As we already discussed, in JavaScript, everything is an object. Just give me 1 minute. Let me share the screen for all of you. Okay, guys. Now, today, let me talk about, since yesterday we had a discussion about array methods and functions, and even JavaScript comes back with a predefined objects, and JavaScript will allow us to write our own defined objects as well. Now, today's session, I would like to talk about how are we going to create objects and what all the predefined objects are. Let me share my screen. I would like to start Sublime Text, which is an editor. Guys, you please try to understand how to create file. So first, we'll try to discuss about what all the predefined objects are there. And the object, see, in JavaScript, object can also be used to store the information. And objects can also be used to store the information, as well as object can also be used to encapsulate the data. Unlike other programming languages, we do have a classes. JavaScript objects can be used in both the ways. Either you can store them some sort of data, and you can also use objects for encapsulating the data. And do not get confused about these two concepts. And let me create one object, one example. Okay, so how are we going to create an object? So right after array or functions, now I'm going to explain how are we create objects. Objects in JavaScript. So JavaScript comes back with a predefined as well as user-defined. First, we'll try to talk about predefined objects in JavaScript. So as usual, I'm just writing one HTML. Here we are going to talk about in detail about objects. So internal JavaScript I'm planning to explain. Script. type is not mandatory for HTML5 document. Next, listen carefully. So the difference between array and object. So those who are completely new, let me explain what is the difference between array and object. So object, the information stored, so which can be used, information where we can store the information, where we can store in the format of key value pair, key colon value pair. So we can call it as objects. Also, objects can be used to encapsulate data. Also, objects in JavaScript can be used to encapsulate the data. We use it to encapsulate. So those who are familiar with C++, you people are aware of what is encapsulation. Okay, next guys, listen. And in JavaScript, generally, in JavaScript, predefined objects are there. Objects are there. And custom defined, which is also custom defined. Custom defined, also called as user defined objects. Let me talk about predefined objects. Then we'll move on to custom defined. So generally, guys, the difference between array and object, if you ask me, first I'll give you the differences. Okay, let me give the differences between array and object. Differences between arrays and objects. Now let me create one example and give you the differences. Where, let me go for students, is equal to, I'm creating literal way of an array. So Sachin, this is an example. Dravid, Saurav, so Lakshman. So since this is an array, so where if you can see all the indexes are mapped with numbers. Array of 0, it will fetch the first value of an array. Array of 1 fetches second value. Array of 2 fetches third value. Now every value which is inside an array mapped with the index, number indexes, numeric indexes. This is called as array. Whereas coming to object, where student info, I'm just creating student info, is equal to, for each student, we are also giving some name of a student. Let me give name and comma, email of a student, Sachin@gmail.com. Just a dummy emails I'm giving. Phone number, I'm just going to give some phone number. And address, something like this. So like that, individually, if you are planning to give more information with respect to each student, now that is where we are going to use object. Now the difference, both of them are continuous memory allocation of a same or different type. But one is array. This is an example. This is a definition of an array. Let's listen carefully. Definition of array. This is literal way. We can also use constructor way, but as I already said, literal way is the best way. It's easy to understand. Everywhere in JavaScript, when you are defining certain identifiers, you also have literal way. We also have constructor way, but we should always go for a literal way. Since it is simple to understand, we must always go for literal way. Now, objects. This is definition of object. Object literal. Since If you're directly using square brackets, which is called as array literal, if you're directly using flower brackets, which is called as object literal. Object constructor also there. I'll try to talk about object constructor a little later. Now you see here, if you wanted to fetch the values of an array, you are planning to fetch the values of an array. Now, array of 0. Now let me print alert. I'm planning to display the information in alert pop-up. Student of 0. It will try to fetch the first value, 1, 2, 3. When you are giving a different index, which is going to fetch that index value. Similarly, if you are planning to fetch the value from an object, my object name is student info, dot notation here is dot followed by name, the properties. Here, if you see all the left-hand side, name, email, phone, address, all these guys are named indexes. Array is numeric indexes. And both of them are going to be used in application development. As and when situation demands, you may have to define array, and sometimes you have to define object. If you want, the indexes must be named indexes. You must go for object. If you want the number indexes, then you must go for student. So arrays. Now, so you see here, and internally, object is also array, my dear friends. Object also, instead of using dot notation, either you can also use dot notation to fetch the value of a particular property, or you can also give array. So then the key you can also pass as a value within the array brackets. This is also, this works same as dot. Now the syntaxes, don't get confused about it. Now if I'll execute this in a browser, you will see first student of 2. Just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Now you see here alert students of index 2, which is fetching Saurav. At the same time, an object dot notation also it is fetching the value Sachin, and using array notation also it is fetching the value. So either there's 2 ways that you can able to fetch the values. So that is what the syntax is. If you are good at basics, and you will be able to build any sort of an application. Now, hope you people are aware of what is the difference between array and object. And JavaScript, as I already said, it has come back with predefined objects. So let me list out the predefined objects which are there in JavaScript. So predefined. the list of predefined objects. The following list is the predefined objects. Predefined objects in JavaScript. Every language, predefined concepts are going to allow to make use of predefined. You can also construct our application. So if a language has a lot of predefined methods or predefined objects, it will be easier for us to create our application. That's where today, if you ask me Python or JavaScript or PHP, these guys are scripting languages which has a lot of predefined methods. So if you are going for other languages, the predefined methods are less. The language which has too many predefined methods, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And since the language comes back with a bunch of methods, you can make use of those methods and you can complete your application development as quickly as possible. Okay, now, if you ask me, what are the predefined? Guys, as I already discussed right from the beginning, even number also one of the predefined object. And string is also one of the predefined object. And array is also predefined object. Even object is also predefined object. Everywhere you see that N capital letter, S capital letter, array, object. And we also discussed document.write. Document is also predefined object. And see, sometimes you may have to do some operations with respect to your browser. So in that case, browser also, navigator is known as navigator object. Navigator. So the browser related navigations that if you wanted to do, all the operations are there in navigator object. And so event related information. So what sort of event? I'll also explain what sort of events are there in JavaScript. That whole information with respect to the event which we have assigned, all these guys are also there as event object. Next, for regular expression related, regular expression, regex, which is also one of the predefined object. Boolean is also one of the predefined object. And so next, navigator and math. To do mathematical operations, math is a predefined object. To do date related operations, date is a predefined object. Like that, JavaScript has bunch of objects which has some sort of properties as well as member functions. If your application development is expecting to use the predefined objects and their features, you please try to use it. Or you can also go for user-defined object. First, we'll try to learn number. See, number related, if you wanted to create a variable or identifier as a number, either you can go for an object constructor way or literal way. We already had a discussion about number, string, array, and see document, navigator, each one of them I'll try to discuss step by step. So null is also object, but null is a data type. It is not a predefined object. Null is a data type. Okay, now guys, let me talk about what are the methods which are there in document now. So anyhow, object we have already created here. So this is a literal way of creating object. And we can also create constructor way or predefined object. This is approach one. The definition of object, this is literal way. And we can also create an object in multiple other ways as well. So I mean to say, if you ask me, so second way, object constructor, object constructor. So if you ask, see where maybe I'm creating one more object, that is product object. So when you are working on e-commerce application, you may have to create a product object with respect to a product information that you have to store it in that object. Okay. Next, you see here Instead of using flower brackets, if you use flower bracket, that is literal way. So here we are going to use function. The constructor way of creating an object is so using a function keyword, function followed by function name, product, and function brackets. Here, guys, listen carefully. People will get confused about it. Yesterday, we had a discussion about function. The function keyword can also be used to create a constructor way of an object. I will also explain what is the difference between object literal and object constructor. Let me construct first constructor way of creating an object. Now, internally, this dot product model, product name, p name is equal to, I'm going to assign, for example, Mac, some name I'm just MacBook Air. So semicolon, this dot product model is equal to A001, something like that. I'm just giving. This dot product price P price is equal to, I'm going to give some 3,20,000 or whatever it is. Just an example. Next, this dot, either you can also keep, as I already said, object can be used to store information alone, or it can also be used to encapsulate the data. So when we are talking about encapsulation, wrapping up a data into a single unit is called as encapsulation. Why do we encapsulate? To give a modularity to application development. That is where this encapsulations class concept. This is one of the object-oriented principle that we'll try to talk later. Now, if I wanted to talk about method within my object, guys, listen carefully. Product details, P details is equal to anonymous function that we are assigning as a anonymous function we are assigning to my method. Now see, so far this P name, P model, and P price, since we directly assign a value, then these three guys we can consider as a properties. Whereas coming to P detail, since we assigned anonymous function, then we can call it as a member. Guys, this P name, P model, P price is a properties, and P detail is a member. Now within this member, if I wanted to, you see here return, I'm just returning the result. This dot P name. Here, what you guys have to observe, here is we are accessing a properties inside my member function. Maybe those who are coming from C++ background, you would have created a class. A class is a group of properties as well as member functions. If you are planning to access a properties within a member function, then we're supposed to use this. This is a keyword which will try to point to the current class. In our example, now this is pointing to a current class, which is product. Now function can also be used to create a normal function. Function can also be created using to create a class in JavaScript. Generally, this is where confusion starts for people, those who are coming from a Java or C++ background. Now, generally in other languages, to create a class, people are using class keyword. Can you all hear me? Himant, can you hear me properly?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So next, what I'm trying to say, but in JavaScript, there are majorly, nowadays we are using ES5 JavaScript as well as ES6+. In ES5 JavaScript, the way how are we going to create a class is by using function keyword. In ES6+ JavaScript, we can also use class keyword to create a class. That is where there are two ways. Prototypal based object oriented is available in JavaScript as well as classical approach. Both the approaches are there, prototypal and classical approach. Again, I'm repeating, my dear friends. If you are planning to create a class in ES5 JavaScript, we have to use this function keyword to create a class. In ES6 plus JavaScript, we can use class keyword to create a class. Now, I don't want to mix up ES5 and ES6, both of them here. I'll try to take separate session to give a differentiation between ES5 and 6. Now, for time being, you try to understand, this is also a kind of creating a class, but here we are not directly using a class keyword. Now, a class, however, the definition of a class is a group of properties as well as member functions. Here also, we are using group of properties as well as member function. Now, in this member function, we are accessing a property. To access a property within a member, we're supposed to use this. Object can also be used to store only information. Object can also be used to encapsulate data. Both the possibilities are available in JavaScript. Next, my dear friends, and this dot product name, and I'm also using plus operator to concatenate. Plus, I'm giving one space plus this dot p model. Again, I'm concatenating with one more space plus this dot price. I'm constructing, you see here, this p price, p model, p price, p name. Now here, once you call this p detail function outside, how are you going to call a property or a member function outside of a class? Now here, however, if you guys wanted to call this, student info, directly you see here, student info, the object name dot property that directly you have called. Now here, if it is object literal, guys, listen carefully. The syntaxes are little different. Directly, since your object is literal way and it is singleton object, there is no multiple instances. This is singleton object. It is also one of the design pattern in JavaScript. Factory design patterns, singleton design patterns. These are the design patterns that we're supposed to learn when you are working on real-time applications. Now, this literal way is a singleton object. So there is no way that we can create multiple instances for student info since it is created literal way. That's where we can call the definition of this literal way is an example for singleton object. Now, if the object definition is singleton, then directly you can use object name followed by dot and property. It will fetch the value. Whereas coming to this object constructor, it is a factory pattern. So here, guys, in a factory pattern, you can also create a multiple instances to your class. So if you are planning to create a multiple instances for your class, make sure that the definition must be object constructor. Then only you will be able to create a multiple instances. If it is a literal way, you can't create multiple instances. That is one of the important points that you people have to understand. Next, how do access? You can't access directly with object name here. So how are we going to access properties? We access a properties or a member functions from an object constructor. First, we need to create an instance. You see here, either var or let keyword and p obj. I'm just creating a local variable is equal to a new operator I'm using, new of product. I'm creating instance. Guys, many people would have been already understood what is the use of new operator. Make sense? So new followed by class name product, which is going to create an instance. The advantage of going for object constructor, you can create multiple instances. However, POBJ one instance. Similarly, you can also create multiple instances. POBJ one more instance, 2, 3, like this, multiple instances that you can create. You can also ask, what is the use of creating a multiple instances? Now you can duplicate it. The advantage of duplicate, if you are expecting, for example, if you need some duplicate then you can go ahead and you can use it. Okay, now you see here the advantage of going for multiple instances. Now using an instance, it is an object. Instance of a class is nothing but an object. Now a handler. I hope you all understand. So what is the advantage of going for this instance is, by using that object, you can able to access a properties or a member functions of a class outside. So next, here you see the object is POBJ. Using that object, I'm going to access. Now you see here console.log. Let me print the result in a log. And object, my object name is POBJ dot pname. This will fetch the value of that particular property, and which is going to return Mac, whatever the value that is associated with this particular. Say similarly, if you wanted to access, Control-D, I'm duplicating. If you wanted to access the member function, you see here, copy this member, paste it here. Since this is a member function, you have to use a function brackets. If the definition of this member is expecting any parameters, you should also call that member by call by value, passing a values. Now, since the definition in the line number 40, which is not expecting any parameters, while calling line number 49, you need not to pass any parameters. What is the output that is going to give? You see here the output is product name space P model A001 space price 320000. This is how it is going to fetch the value. Hope you people are aware of it. And however, by using POBJ, that is a single instance, you are able to access the properties and members outside of a class. Similarly, since you have created a multiple instances, we can also access. Guys, now the object constructor way, if you are assigning a property value statically, there is no much more difference between object literal and object constructor. Both of them are similar in this fashion. Why? Because even if you create a number of instances, by using this instance, if you are using pname, always it will give MacBook Air. Even POBJ1.pname also it will give a same output. Even for OBJ2, OBJ3.pname also it is give a same output. Then what is the point of creating multiple instances? Each instance is giving a same output. Then there is no much difference between literal and object constructor. Generally, object constructor will help us to pass a parameters to your class. While creating an instance, you can pass a parameters, and by using that parameters, you can even reconstruct your class. That is where that object constructor is responsible to create a different instances for handling different tasks. Now you see how I am modifying. This is very important, my dear friends. Instead of giving a static values, and here the product name of a product, comma, model of a product, comma, price of a product. All these three parameters I'm passing as a arguments. You see here, and the definition I'm passing as a parameters. While passing, I'm going to call as arguments. You see here. Now name, model, price. Now this name I'm going to allocate it for my property name, P model, and the model I'm also assigning the parameter whatever I pass, the model parameter, and the price also, which I am collecting as a price, which I am collecting as a parameter. Now you see here, there is no static way of declaring the assigning the values to your properties. Now, all these guys, this followed by P name, P model, P price. All these guys are properties. And whereas coming to this name, model, price, these guys are local variables. Why? Because as we discussed yesterday, function, whatever the parameters that we are passing, all the parameters which are passed to a function is locally available to a function. The scope of parameters which we passed is local scope. Now this name, model, price. Now you see here, the moment when you are creating an instance, the definition of your class expects 3 parameters. You must have to pass those 3 parameters. Hope you are able to follow me. This is very, very important, guys. We are not just giving only a basic information. We are giving basic to advanced level of knowledge. Ask your friends to join so that it will be useful for them to understand how these objects are. Everywhere, even Java, .NET, Python, PHP, or Ruby, any language if you take, it is a combination of object-oriented as well as procedure-oriented. So if you learn this concept in JavaScript, in other languages, the concepts are same, but there might be different way of implementation, or maybe syntaxes might be vary from one language to another language, but the concept remains same. Wherever you go, human is going to eat a food, but North India, South India, maybe Kerala, if you go for a different areas, the food style, the way how what sort of food that people are eating, it might vary from one region or one place to another place, but everywhere food only, right? Similarly, every language, the concepts are same. Okay, next, my dear friends. Now, while creating an instance, you have to pass name. Now, name I am passing here, MacBook. That information, MacBook Air. And the product model, I'm just going to pass A001. And the price I'm passing as a call by value. Now, let me pass this in a single quotations. Next, when you are creating a new instance, I'm just passing Dell Inspiron. Just an example. The model D001. Sorry. ASR. And here, ASR AC001. And the price also I'm just giving some price. Whereas coming to this Dell D001, and the price I'm just giving some price. So multiple, when you are creating an instance, I'm going to use Lenovo. L001, just a dummy information that I'm giving, my dear friends, some number. So now you see here, when you are creating a different instance, we are also passing a different parameters. As long as when you are passing different parameters and the constructor way of creating an object, it construct your properties by collecting the values during the instance. You see here, that is the advantage of going for object constructor. Why? Because during the initialization or creating an instance, you will be able to copy that particular information, and you collect the arguments, and you will be able to use them while constructing object to your class. That is advantage. Now it is not going to, even when you are duplicating, the information we are going to get is different information. Now you see here, console.log obj1 p obj1 dot product name p name. P details. Similarly, multiple instances, when you are accessing, you see the output. P obj2.p name, obj2.p details, obj3, obj3. So now if you ask, now go back and reload. Execute your, if you execute it, these alerts are coming, that is fine, and inspect. You see that all the information, MacBook Air, Dell Inspiron, and Acer, and Lenovo. And each instance, so we are able to get the different values, my dear friends. This is one of the advantages of going for object constructor. Now I hope you understand what is the use of going for encapsulation. Now here, my method, if you ask me, now this object constructor, it is wrapping properties, also member functions. If tomorrow a product related, for example, if you wanted to modify product, this dot add product. This method is responsible to write all the product adding a product into a cart or maybe whatever it is. So the product related information that we can even wrap it into a single object. Now tomorrow order related, I can create one more object. For payment related, I can create one more object. Like that, a separate objects that we can create when you are working on real-time applications. In that way, your life will be easier, my dear friends. You can also divide your project into multiple modules, and each module that you can assign to a different developer. Organizing a code will also be easy, and assigning a task to your developers is also easy. And wrapping a data into a single object, it will reduce the complexity. That is where the advantage of going for object encapsulation, it is very important. I hope you people are aware of it. Even see, let me give one simple example, my dear friends. If you people are capable enough to lift 50 kgs, generally girls max to max, they can even lift 20 to 25 kgs. And guys, maybe if you are strong and gym body, you can also lift 60 kgs without taking any support. Don't even debate on this question, my dear friends. In case if you are a Arnold kind of a body, if you have, you can also lift 100 kgs at one shot without taking anybody's support. I'm not talking about that, but a common man I'm talking. 60 kgs, think that, okay, a 50 kgs is a normal man can even lift, but you have a bag of 100 kgs. But your house is there in third floor. Now 100 kgs bag, how are you going to put it into a third floor? And you can also, people, some smart people are there. We will hire a labor, and that person will come and lift it to third floor. And you don't have any laborers. Nobody is there for you to help. In such cases, how are you going to do? That is where you guys have to use decomposing methodologies. And since your bag consists of 100 kgs and you can able to lift 50, then two partitions, 50 plus 50, then 2 times if you do the task, then you can easily move your luggage from ground floor to the third floor. Similarly, when you are working on real-time application, those applications are not small applications. Initially, every application will start from a single line of character. And slowly, the moment when we are keep adding features into an application size increases. If the size increases, if your guys are not using these object-oriented principles, and the complexity is going to increase, my dear friends. To reduce the complexity, to reuse the code again and again, that is where we are going to use this object-oriented principles. Among all the principles, this encapsulation is one of the best principles. And this in JavaScript, we are achieving encapsulation by using object constructor. And the literal way of object. Here in the literal way also, you see here I'm modifying. In literal way also, you can also give the whole details, complete details, I can say. Details. Colon, I can also assign anonymous function. Within this, I can use return followed by this dot. I can use name of a property, plus I can concatenate with empty, and I'm accessing this dot email plus concatenating with empty value plus this dot phone number plus this dot address. Now you see here, even the object literal also, purely you can also use it for store the data, or you can also add a member functions into it. That is one of the advantage of going for objects in JavaScript. Whether you can use to add only properties and values, you can also use to add a member functions into it. What is member function here? See, member functions are the one which is going to use to perform some specific task. Even function and members, if you are adding inside an object or an object constructor, which is called as member function. And properties, all left hand side guys, those who are having the values, then those guys are properties, and those who are assigned with anonymous function, that is called as a member. Now member also a specific task which is going to perform. Same it applies. Now the difference between literal and a constructor, constructor there is a way of passing the parameters, whereas coming to literal there is no way of passing the parameters. And this is singleton object pattern, whereas coming to object constructor is a factory pattern. So whatever the see, if you are using factory design pattern, you can create a multiple instances. When you are working on real-time applications, you may need to create a multiple instances. In such cases, go for object constructor. In some cases, you may need single. In that case, better to go for a object literal. Hope you understand. And one more approach is there. This is object literal. This is one way. And this is object constructor. And one more way is also there. That is using predefined object. Using object. Predefined object. Now here, let me go for where order object obj is equal to new of object. This is O capital letter object. This is a predefined one. Now I am creating an instance. By using an instance now, you see here I am going to add a properties. Order number. Order obj dot O number. Order number is equal to something like I am assigning O order 001. Order date. Order obj dot O date. Order date is equal to, I can add 12/08 something 2020. I can say something like that. You see here now O number and O date. These two guys are properties, and we are assigning a values. And this is first we are creating an instance, and then by using that object instance, we are adding properties, and we can also add a members also. Order obj dot O details is equal to, I'm going to use anonymous function, the function without a name. So here this dot return statement I'm using for you to understand. This dot O number plus this dot O date. Now, guys, let me print. I am printing console.log and order obj dot obj dot o details. If I try to access o details, that is more than enough. It will try to fetch the properties also. O details. Now go and check how are we going to get. So how are we going to get the details? Now, if I execute this in a browser, now see here, it is completely returning the function. Return this dot o number and this dot o date. But if you want a values, guys, listen carefully. O details is a member function, right? I used as a property. That is where it is giving a. So this is always points to a current, class to access the properties and the member functions. This is very, very important. Now I used as a method. Now you see here in the line number 76, you are able to access order number, order date. Hope you people are aware of it. Now, guys, when someone asks you to define an object, you should also think whether object is only for storing data or object is only for encapsulation. So if you are encapsulating, you must have to go for both, like properties as member functions you have to wrap together. Or if you are using object to store only a data, then your key value pair is sufficient enough. Okay, see in the academics, maybe you might not even use the extensive way of programming. The basics only you guys have learned. That is where many of the people are facing problems when you people are going for interviews or when you are working on real time. That's why XLR is filling the gap between this academics and industry. We are giving an industry-oriented training, my dear friends. Kindly utilize this opportunity to understand what is the use of objects in JavaScript, or how are we going to use in real time. So if you don't know how to use this particular information in real time, it will be tough for all of you to understand what is the importance of going for object-oriented principles. Now, every language will also have a combination of both procedure-oriented as well as object-oriented. Hope you people are aware of it. Next, so there are three ways that we can create. So this is known as a predefined way, user-defined way of creating object, guys. This is either literal way or constructor way or predefined object way. That is up to you. But among all these three ways, and generally we used to go for object literal and object constructor in many places. Next, so let me talk about the predefined objects. I thought of talking about predefined objects, then I took it in a different way. I explained how are you going to create a custom objects, user defined. But now let me talk about DOM object and what is the use of each one of them. Document object. For document object, let me talk about. So separately, I'll try to explain. Okay, now what I'm trying to explain here. Let me talk about what are the few methods which are there in document object model. For that, I'm going to create separate example for DOM. Instead of creating all of them in a single, and I'm going to create separate example, my dear friends. All this code will be shared to you guys and in a drive very soon. Now let me save. Now document object model, DOM. DOM.html. DOM stands for document object model. So which is going to help us to create HTML elements dynamically, or it will also DOM will also allow user to select an element. Now let me go for DOM, document object model. Yes, it is very, very important concept when you are working on dynamic applications. You should also aware of how to prepare HTML dynamically using DOM methods. Now here simply I will try to create one sample example, my dear friends. So listen carefully. So I'm just creating, for example, I wanted to create a section and just section with 3 divisions. Div 1 here HTML, and I would also create division 2 where CSS. I would like to create division 3 JavaScript. This is what I wanted to generate. Now this is statically I just created. Now go and execute it. If you execute it, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is printing like this. This is the static way of creating a HTML elements. Now, how are we going to create the same way by using document object model methods? This is very important. Please try to understand. Now, guys, here the same. I'm commenting out the same. Let me comment out this. Commented out. Next here, I'm using document object model. You see here where dynamic HTML, one local variable which I'm creating, dynamic HTML is equal to, guys, document is a predefined object. Document is a predefined object. Dot create element. Create element. Just give me 1 minute, my dear friends. Okay, now this create element. Now you see here, since we need to create a section, we also need to create a division. We also need to create 3 divisions and text. So in order to generate this small, HTML, how are we going to use DOM methods? You please try to understand. For this create element is a method which is already predefined in document object. This document object is a literal way of creating an object. This is predefined. How JavaScript is used? This is literal way it is created. That's why you are not even creating any instance by using new operator. Directly you are using document model, document object. If it would, even if a document object, if it would have created using constructor way, the moment if you wanted to access it, you must have to create an instance. But here we are not creating an instance. That is why, so directly you are using document dot create element. Here for create element method, you have to pass element name section. Guys, listen carefully. Section. Now let me alert this dynamic HTML. What is there in this? Now you will get to know how this create element method is helping. Now go back, open in a browser. Now it is alerting object HTML element. Why? Because this is creating a DOM node. Now DOM nodes directly alert. It is always it will display the strings. It won't even display object or DOM objects. Now Listen carefully. Stop displaying. Now let me print in a console. Console.log. And you will get to know what it is generated. The create element, whatever you just passed as a tag name, and it is going to create a complete element. Now go back to your browser and inspect and reload. You see here, you passed section tag name as a parameter to create element, but behind the scenes, that create element is generating a element, section element completely. Now within the section, and so guys, you should also create one more element where division, where division one you have to create for that document dot create element. So here you have to pass division. Like that, how many divisions are required? So try to create 3 divisions, 2, 3. Now logically, I'm just building it. For everyone is division only. But every division, guys, you have to add a text node. Division 1 text. For that also you have to create a separate variable, div1 txt is equal to, separately you have to create a text node. For that, create text node. This is one of the predefined methods which are there in document object mode. Here, what is the text? Now, whatever HTML that is creates a text node. Now, this text node you must have to append back to my division 1. You see here, to append that div1. It is one of the element which is created division dot append child, append hyphen child, C capital letter child, and you are going to pass div1 text which you are generated just now. Guys, this is how. Now whole division 1, we should also append it back to my dynamic HTML, that is parent. Now what I'm going to do at last, dynamic HTML, this is a node, parent node. Dot append child, which is going to append all the children. What is the children? Division 1. Append child is a function, you have to pass the children. So now what does that mean? Line number 22, what it is going to do, the division 1 node that you have created, you are appending back to dynamic HTML node, which is section. I hope you understand. Instead of using the dynamic HTML, I can say section, one local variable. Now, instead of using, since variable is renamed, better to use that rename. Hope you people are able to follow. This is what actual programming is started, my dear friends. Now you see here under section, you have one division and text is also there. Similarly, you should also create multiple other divisions as well. Now, div2.text, copy paste. Guys, development is all about copy paste. And those who have all, some people will try to think that development is tough. But development is not at all tough. Development is dead easy. 20% of the logic only we have to write, remaining 80% is copy paste. Since the trainers or maybe your lecturers or maybe your mentors, they don't know how to teach properly. That is where people are, thinking that development is tough. The programming phobia will be there for many people. But if you are not a programmer, I'm sure you can't become, you can't earn good amount. In IT, especially when it comes to software side, if you are staying as a developer, you will have a lot of scope to earn much amount. Other than, developer, the amount you can earn, that story is different, but the jobs and the challenging environment and also demand will be there for a development jobs, not for other jobs. Because developers are heart and soul of an application. Either whatever the development it is a tool development or application development or mobile application development, whatever it is. As a developer, because developers are always in demand. Next, you see here, now division 2 text. I'm creating div2 text here. In the place of HTML, we are creating CSS. And for division 2 element, we are appending division 2 text. Very simple, copy paste. Now, division 3 text also I'm creating. In division 3, we are placing JS And this division 3 text, we are going to append back to my division 3 node. All this division 3 and division 1, division 2, we have to append it back to my section. Division 1 also here appended. Similarly, division 2 should also be appended. Division 3 also should also appended. Now division 2, logically, if you know, it will be easier. Semicolon is a line terminator in JavaScript. Now you see section is generated under section HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now this is using pure JavaScript, you have generated HTML. This is how you must have to create a code. Guys, now if you don't know, logically, if you are not remembering this, it will be tough for any newbie comes into your picture. It is very tough for him to understand what is this is all about. Now, guys, no matter whether it is mathematics or computers or social studies or science or maybe chemistry, if you logically remember the concept, it will be easier for you to make use of them while working on a task. Next, let me delete this static way of creating. I'm just dynamically. Why? See, many places we have to send a request back to a client to a server. Server has to give a data, and you have to create dynamic HTML. This is one way. Now, whatever the section that we have appended, we have created. Now you are going to use document.write is also one more important method, which is going to write whatever the section that you have created. That section we are writing into a body. Now go back and reload. Now you see object HTML element, it is printing. Section. Document.write. I am planning to print into your body. Then why it is not coming? Let me check. Section. Inspect element. It is printing as object HTML element. It is not printing as output. Why? Now I know what is the issue. Let me change it. It is printing as output. Why? But in a console, it is printing as a text. You see here, but when you are planning to write it, document.write is misbehaving here. It is not directly writing document.write method, whatever the object that we have created. If this write is not writing it properly, then you have another option, my dear friends. What you can do, you can select an element. Body you are going to select. Let me check. Document dot get elements by tag name. I'm using another way. Hi guys, can you all hear me?
Yeah,
Come
yes,
on.
sir. Yes, sir.
I think I lost the screen in between.
You got disconnected, sir.
So how long I got disconnected?
Just now only, sir. Just a moment. That's it.
Oh, okay, got it, got it. See, what I'm trying to explain for all of you guys, and try to don't rely on only one technology. Try to learn multiple technologies where it can help you out to get a job. Even something goes wrong with your primary source of income, and you should also be in a position to earn secondary. That's why plan B is always important. Okay, so now DOM manipulation, but same HTML you see here. If you ask me what sort of examples, now create element is also one of the DOM method. Create text node is also one of the DOM method, and append child is also one of the DOM method, and get elements by tag name is also one of the DOM method. These many DOM methods that we discussed. Next, guys, let me list out all the DOM methods which are important. I'm listing out all the DOM methods. List of all the DOM methods. So guys, listen, right from the beginning, if you ask me, create element, which is going to create a HTML element. Next, create text node. This will create a text node. Next, append child. This is going to append the created element to a parent. Next, set attribute, which is going to set an attribute to an element. Remove attribute. Remove attribute. Next, get computed styles. If you wanted to get all the CSS styles which are applied computed styles to an element, this is one of a method. And also, then when it's, these are the few methods with respect to create element or modifying or setting attribute to element. Next, selectors are there. Selectors to select an element. However, in CSS, we do have some sort of selectors that I had already discussed. In JavaScript, DOM selectors are there. Those guys are get element by ID, which help us to select an element using their ID. Next, get elements by class name. Elements by tag name. First, let me go for tag name. Using tag name also you can select, or get elements by class name. Using their class name also you can select elements by class name. And query selector. So you can also pass a different queries. Query selector all. This is what different way of selecting an element. This is also DOM methods. Now here 6 methods and 5 methods. There are 11 methods that we frequently use in JavaScript. Okay. Next here, let me talk about, I think we had a discussion of create element, create text node, append child, set attribute, remove attribute. Now set attribute and remove attribute, I'll tell you my dear friends, if you wanted to add any attributes in a sense, for adding a class is also attribute. For image SRC is attribute. For anchor href is attribute. And adding ID to element is also attribute. Then see, for example, now my dear friends, for a section element, I wanted to add one class. You please try to see. Now I am going to keep a class here, internal CSS that I am writing. Type is not mandatory. Here I'm just using dot container. So I'm making display flex. My container is flex. Then dot children's, one more class. And I'm just using flex1. Now these two classes, the container class I have to add it for a section element. For children class I have to add it for my divisions. For that, since class is a attribute, how I am going to use set attribute method, you please try to understand here. Guys, listen. Section element is already created. Section element. Then here, section element dot set attribute. Here I'm going to give an attribute name class followed by attribute value. So what is the class value? Container. You see here. After that, if you execute it, go back and reload your page. Now, if you reload, you can even see that if you go to the element inside a body, the section has added class with a container. Similarly, for each division, if you are planning to add children class, now same division 1 is an element. For this same, you have to add attribute. Dot set attribute. Here we are going to add class. Comma. What is the class name? Children. Same, you have to add this class for division 2 as well. Logic, I have used it and I'm copy pasting it. I'll go and reload. You can see that inside a body for a section, the main container class is added. For each division, children class is added. This is another way of creating a setting attributes. Like that, class is one of the attribute. ID, any attribute that you are planning to set, you can even set that. Hope you people understand. Okay, next, see if you wanted to add a few more CSS, then anyhow classes are there. What I can do here, I can go for a border, 1px solid, some color, border color. And I can also use border radius, 10 pixel radius. Save this file, save, reload. This is how it is coming. And if you wanted to, give us some background color, background, linear gradients, multi-line linear gradients. Here, let me go for orange, white, green. So our Indian flag color, I'm using it. This is how we can also, create HTML dynamically using JavaScript, and you can even style them using CSS. And you can also ask a question, sir, why should I create dynamically HTML by using this DOM manipulation methods? I can also create statically within my body. That is also possible. So I'm just giving you multiple options, and as long as the requirement demands, you please go ahead and execute it. Okay, so now DOM manipulation methods, remove attribute. Set attribute is setting attribute, remove attribute is removing, and get element by ID. Guys, listen carefully. This get element by ID, if you wanted to select an element using their ID, then you can use this method. If you are planning to select an element using their tag name, then you can go for it. Now you see here elements by tag name I have used in line number 45. Now I passed body as my tag name. since this get elements, you see here it is a plural. Since this will always returns a collection, since it is returning a collection, and so you have to use array of index because it is a array. It is returning array. No matter, see, generally one body is there. In the place of body, you can also pass division. But if you are passing division, generally there are 4 divisions or 3 divisions are there in my body, inside my body. Now, all 3 divisions are going to select, but I wanted to select only one. In that case, since it is a collection returning 3 divisions, then you can even use the indexes to refer the first division or second division or third division. Make sense? Now get elements by ID. Now for see, I'm giving an example for get elements by tag name. You see here, now body. If I print that in a console, console.log.
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
Is it breaking now?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So now I would like to print that into body. Hey, Himawati, is there any speaker is available in our XLR?
Sorry, sir. I don't know about that because I'm working from home.
No worries. I will try to check. Okay, fine. So now if I'm printing it, now you see here in a console, if you go, now it is returning HTML collection. So is that an array? Yes, it is array. And guys, in the place of body, if I'll try to pass a division, you see that, go and check how many divisions are there. Since it is 3 divisions are there, it is also returning array. Even 1 division or multiple, it is returning as array. That is where I have used a concept called index here. Array of 0, it fetches first value. Even for single body, it is going to search for an element based upon their tag name. And even if the page has 1 body, it is returning as a collection. That's why this array of 0, this concept, you guys have to use it. If you're not using this, and your get elements by tag name won't even work as expected, again, you may have to face a problems. So that's why no matter whatever the language that you people are learning, you should also have a solid knowledge on that language. And the basics, you must be thorough enough. Okay, next, see why I'm talking about this JavaScript more, because Angular or React or Vue.js, whatever the frameworks or libraries, all of them are derived from JavaScript. That's why my sincere advice for all of you to, if you want to become a good front-end developer and to get a good jobs, better to follow these JavaScript sessions properly. If you're expert in this JavaScript session, guys, I'm sure you can even earn like anything. Freelancing jobs will also be there, and you can also work from home, and you can also create a freelancing profile, and you can get more jobs as a freelancer. Also, you can earn more. But if you're going for other than this front end, the freelancing jobs will be less, and you can't even get more money, because every backend application, no matter if the backend application is built with Java, .NET, Python, those applications also need a front end. Even if the tools also need a good front end, even mobile application also need a good front end. That's why front end developers are always in demand. Okay, my dear friends. Now, what I'm trying to explain. So get element by ID. At the same time, get element by tag or class name. You see here, I'm just using class name. Now class name here, if I try to pass children, is my class. Go and check how many elements which are going to read. See, 3 elements. If I'll pass container as a class, now only 1 element. This is also returning a collection. This also return a collection. Next, if you are going for example, a class test. Now you see that test is nowhere available, but if you are passing unknown class which is not available, it is returning empty array. This returns empty array. This is what you have to check permutations and combinations. Okay. Next, what I'm trying to explain, get element by class name is done, body is done, ID anyhow. See, now there is no ID, but if you wanted to set ID for your section, you see here, I'm setting ID here, ID. Now, main container one ID I'm just giving. Now, if I am planning to select an element using their ID, guys, get elements. It is not elements, it is just element, singular. Now, if I try to see what it is returning, get element by ID. Now it is returning an element. You see here, it is not returning as a collection, it is just returning that HTML element. Now here, all the methods are predefined methods, which are there in document object. This 10, 15, 11 methods are sufficient enough for you to understand, my dear friends. Now query selector, let me give query selector. Query selector. In this query selector, here you have to pass as a query ID. This will also return, you see here, it will return a single element. It is also same. In case, if I am giving query selector with a class, you see here, dot children, it is a class. Now you see multiple children classes are there, but even though if it has multiple children's, but it is returning only first occurrence. You see here, first occurrence. Even the second division, if you go to elements, even second division also has a children class, third division also has a children, but this query selector, if you are passing a different query, either class also you can pass. If you are familiar with CSS selectors, all CSS selectors that you can pass as a query to your query selector method. But the query selector method always return a first occurrence of a given selector. Whereas coming to query selector all, it is going to return multiple elements. Go back to it. See, it is returning node list. Again, it is a collection. div.children, div.children, div.children. Now, hope you understand. Query selector all returns a collection. Query selector returns a single element. Similarly, get element by ID returns single element. Get elements by tag name, get elements by class name returns a collection. This is the differences between each one of them. These are the document object methods. And, I think you guys are familiar with all these methods. When the situation demands, you please try to understand. And also, if you want to become expert in any technology, don't even try to buy hard a technology. And you should have a just common sense. If you have a common sense, that is more than enough. Common sense and discipline, continuous efforts. These three, principles are qualities to become expert in anywhere. And there are people, those who are, studying for time pass. This session is not for the time passes. Guys, there are thousands of opportunities and billions of jobs are there for people who are expertise in technologies. And we also seen many of the freshers and who are not taking the right decisions. They are working in wrong places. And if you are working on wrong, if you get into a wrong bus and you can't even expect a right destination. That's why my sincere advice for all of you, try to choose the right technology, because there are, XLR also provided some sort of, sessions in the previous, and how are you going to choose the right technologies right after your graduation or post-graduation. And please try to follow those sessions and understand. Why? Because right after your BTech, and choosing a technology plays very, very important role in your life. And I also seen many of the people right after their uh, college, and some people would have got a job through a campus. Now through campus, whoever got a job, in one way it is fine, but in another way, the companies are going to put them in a wrong technologies, guys. Companies are hiring a candidates and they won't even give a right job for them. According to the company openings, they will try to put them. That's why even if you get a campus selection, if the role is not a right role, if they are not putting you in the development side or right role, and you can't even take that job as a right job. That's why my sincere advice is try to understand, try to read, analyze, and choose a right job, a right course right after your graduation. Now, this kind of sessions, if you guys are attending, this will give you a lot of benefits to take a decision. And you should also always check if you are strong in technology. You need not to request anybody, and the companies are going to give importance for the people who are good at technology. Now, JavaScript is one of the booming technology. And from past 10 years, if you ask me, from 2011, 12 to till today, even it will be exist for years from now. So that JavaScript is a backbone for front end. Even Angular is get easy if you're perfect in. In the next week, we are planning to start Angular. So by that time, so it is all more or less we are going to use JavaScript and TypeScript concepts while building an Angular application. Okay, so that is all about today's session. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask now. I'm going to address all your queries. Sir, we are expecting active participation. Kindly ask questions if you have. So someone is asking, does information means only properties and encapsulation means properties and numbers? Yes. See, if you are just planning to create only a data, then you can go for object. And if you also need properties and members, you can also go for encapsulation mechanism by using object itself. And is it possible for to create and maintain dynamic number? Yes, it is possible. And why did document.write did not work? See, because I have used, the browser, I must have to check, because generally during the development, we will always use Chrome. But here, since I have used Edge, that Edge browser is not working, that write method is not working as expected. See, one of the important point when we are working on this front end, guys, we never know what sort of browsers that users are using. The browsers, some people can use Edge browser, some of them can use Internet Explorer, some of them can use Chrome or Safari or Opera or Firefox. Make sure that when you people are working, and your code should work well in all the browsers. Since document.write is not working in Edge, if users are using Edge, then it won't even work for them. That's why the alternative techniques I have used elements by tag name. And when you are working on real-time applications, you have to test your code in all available browsers in the market. That is one of the scope. Difference between class and attribute. Class is also attribute, and attribute is nothing but if you are planning to give extra information to your element, that is where attributes comes into a picture. That is very fundamental of HTML. Yes, of course, we can also set multiple classes by using set attribute methods. Yes, Pranay Kumar, can you explain me how to create object using class keyword? But for that, you have to wait till that ES6 JavaScript comes into picture. Guys, Python and these scripting languages, everyone, even the compile programming and scripting language, both of them are executing the code line by line. But compiler compiles entire program and it will try to give errors at last. Interpreter, it interrupts when the errors are there. Apart from this, everyone remains same. Sir, if I wanted to set multiple classes, can I pass separate by commas? No need to separate by commas, give a space. Sir, what is the difference between get element by ID, div1, and query selector div1? See, in query selector, you can't even pass div1. See, in query selector, you have to pass a respective selector which you learned in CSS. Either tag selector, tag name, or class name, or ID name, or attribute. And these are the query, that respective selector that you have to pass as a parameter. Now get element by ID selection element based upon the ID value. Where a query selector, if you pass ID, it will try to select based upon ID. If you pass class, it will select an element based upon class. That is the difference. Thank you, Netaji Gandhi. Thanks for appreciating us. All the best for you, each of us. What is meant by my instantiation means? What is meant by my instantiation? But instantiation is nothing but creating object for a class is called as instantiation. Yes, Subham Raj. Hello, sir. How are you? I should appreciate the one who has named in the name of data science, and he is actively participating. And I should appreciate you every day. You are actively there in the group. Thank you so much for active participation, Mr. Data Science. Shubham Raj, how can I make a eForm edition online app? See, we have to use presentation layer and application layer and database layer. That is going to be a one dynamic application that we're supposed to create. For a mobile, we have to use either Android or iOS or React Native for creating hybrid applications. That is a process, Shubham Raj. If you want, we can even help you out how to create this medical and medicine online apps. What is the price of single front-end page? Guys, it is depends upon how much functionality which is there in a single page. Even if you ask me, Google is also single page, right? But Google, by using that single page, Google is earning billions of dollars. Now in that single page, what sort of logic which is there, it makes sense a lot. That's why people used to say, don't judge a book by looking its cover. It's all about, what sort of features which are there in that page. Now, if it is a static page, then it will cost, from 250 rupees to XYZ amount. It depends upon the functionality. See, in this course, I think Ajax and jQuery, and because the time is very limited, and we'll try to teach Ajax and jQuery, but not in depth level. How much is possible for, Angular, that much only we are going to teach. Suhail Afroj, if I wanted to set multiple classes, can I pass separating by commas? No, by space you have to use. Separate by space. Yes, of course, boss. This training will definitely help you to, get some interviews. Kindly put, if you are learning all these technologies thoroughly, if you know this, I'm sure you can easily, get interview calls. Now companies are expecting a trained professionals, not a extremely freshers. Triveni Buska. Any other questions? See, ask your friends to join regularly so that, guys, if you people are getting these kind of opportunities, don't even misuse. Because of IPL, I can see there is very less response. IPL won't even give a good food for us. Am I right? If you wanted to fulfill your dream, a dream is nothing but if you eat well and if you sleep, whatever the dreams that you are getting, that is not a dream. A dream is, it should not even let you to sleep. And see, today's young generation is for India, like kind of, countries, the young generation people has to utilize the time very well. And the time is so precious, my dear friends. Time is, some people used to say that time is equal to money, but time is equal to life. And whatever the hours that you guys are passing off, and I'm definitely, you can't even get, that time. Whatever the amount that you spend, you can't even get that amount back. That's why my sincere advice for you people are youngsters. You can do a lot more miracles if you are really utilizing the time. See, out of 24 hours, if you ask me, guys, my day starts by 5:30. Every day 5:30, I'll wake up. 5:30 to 6:30, or worst case by 7 o'clock till 1.5 hours, I used to do exercises, physical activities I used to do. Either playing, cricket also I used to play early morning. I'll play some sort of physical activities I'll do. Then 7 o'clock, my journey starts. From 7, then I'm going to, focus on my career. 7 to till evening 10 o'clock, I'll focus on career. Then 10 o'clock, I'll eat. I'll eat by 8:15 since, the training is started in between 7 to 9. That is where my timings also little change, dinner time. Generally, dinner I used to eat before 8. 2 hours gap. See, if you are physically fit, and you cannot ease, the mental, it will impact on your mental ability as well. That's why people used to say, my gurus also used to say, try to maintain your stomach 60-40 formula. Don't even eat, full. If your stomach full, if you eat, automatically your brain is going to take rest. If brain takes rest, you will become lazy. Today's class weight is equal to 7-day classes. No, it's all about your purpose. See, we are putting a lot of efforts to give a good training, my dear friends. You please try to, utilize our time. Now, out of 24 hours, I'll tell you, so closely around 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours, I'll work. Then 2 hours I am spending for physical activities. Then 14 plus 2, 16 hours. Still, I have 8 hours to sleep. And so, I am spending time for my family. I do have 2 kids. I am spending time on my family only on Saturday and Sunday. That too, 4 hours, 4 hours. Now, since it is a lockdown and we are getting an opportunity to stay with our family members, we should thank to coronavirus. Every people used to say that corona is a, virus, but I feel corona is a goddess. Literally, sir, even in my family also, one of my uncle is affected with corona and he passed away. But still, I am saying corona is a goddess. The reason is, I'll tell you, my dear friends, corona is teaching us a lot of lessons. Now you have to utilize your time and efforts. Running behind money is not only a focus. Running behind many things you have to take care. That is what corona is teaching for the entire world. So that's all about today's session. Don't ever try to think that I'm just giving a class unwantedly. No, it's not like that. So I'm just educating all of you guys and utilize these sessions properly. At least, moving forward, whatever the sessions that we conduct, HLR conducts, you try to respect them and try to participate. 100% active participation is much needed. So you will learn a lot of things. And thanks for your participation for today. And we'll try to see tomorrow. And we are going to talk about other predefined objects and the continuation of pending predefined objects that we are going to. In this week, I will complete it maximum JavaScript. And next week, we are going to start Angular. Be ready for Angular. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye. So, Himawat, can you please call me after this call?
What? Sorry, sir.
Can you please call me after the call?
Yeah, okay, sir.